Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. I am your host and sports director, Brian Nelson, and with me I have...
I'm the one and only, your assistant sports editor, Andy. Whoa, Khalid! You've transformed.
Back from the Super Bowl early and with a complete makeover.
Yes.
Andy Anders, by the way, to finish my statement.
And why don't you introduce yourself first, Ashley?
I am Ashley Kimmel. I'm the assistant arts and life editor.
Okay.
And I'm just happy to be here, Brian. What do we have on the docket today?
You have to introduce yourself, Griffin.
Oh, of course, I'm the sports editor, Griffin Strom, here with my lovely co-hosts once again, and I'm just happy to get into whatever we've got going on.
Yes, just for clarification, Khalid currently is in Miami. He has a very special opportunity to be covering the Super Bowl, and we are all very happy for him. But that means we had to bring in Ashley for a guest appearance. And Andy, I do believe we are bringing back the quiz that we did last semester a couple times. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did. We did it with Ashley's co-editor, one Nicholas Youngblood. He got 7 out of 10 correct on his quiz. Lydia, the assistant campus editor, also got 7 out of 10 correct on hers. Those were 2 different quizzes. So the idea is there's 10 questions. If you get 5 of them right, you win $5 from me. Hooray.
Yes.
I don't know if Andy's ever actually paid up on that end.
No, I paid both of them.
What if you get 0?
Well, then you win. You win my warm affection for coming on the podcast and
what could be better
filling
than
in
that?
for us, yes.
True.
Plus exposure to like the 50 people who watch this.
Let's just say this
On a good day.
This segment is nothing short of iconic, and I know the comment section has been just grappling for.
Have we ever
taste.
gotten a comment on a video?
No.
That makes me sad.
Honestly, I kind of like it. I don't want there to be a comment now. I just want us to go the entire semester, not a single comment.
If there was a comment, it would
Just
probably be
silence.
mean and disparaging. So at least this way we're headed in a positive direction.
Anyway, getting back on track. We will be talking about men's basketball and what's going on with them, the Minnesota Northwestern games, after the quiz. So if you are not interested in the quiz, which if you should be because it's an awesome, fun little segment, but if not, you can skip ahead to that. But for now, we are going to get right into the quiz. I will hand it over to the one and only Andy Anders.
The one and only.
Yes.
All right, Ashley, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So give the viewers some background on your sports knowledge.
See, I mean, it's not great, but also I don't really know what these questions are going to be like. Like, I'm interested in sports. I like them, but in terms of, like...
Did you play any sports growing up?
I played soccer, but unfortunately in high school, my soccer schedule and then marching band conflicted, so I chose marching band. But I've always been, like, athletic and can, like, pick up sports and, like, have fun doing them. My knowledge on them, however, isn't the greatest.
That's fine. I think that's about the same boat Lydia was in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can also empathize with wanting to choose marching band. I did that as well in high school. It was a lot of fun. So
My
Let's be
brother and
honest.
sister both did. Yeah.
Marching band, another key element to a sporting event.
Yes.
absolutely.
Essential.
In many ways.
Honestly, my favorite part of Ohio State game day is the marching band coming down the ramp. So, but on that note, are you ready for your?
I see what you did there.
What? So, first question. It's multiple choice A, B, C, and D.
Cool.
What volleyball action would typically produce a kill? A, set, B, spike, C, serve, or D, dig?
What was B again?
Spike.
I'm going to say it's either B or D, I think. I'm going to say B.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Hey,
Spike would produce a kill in volleyball. This quiz was originally designed for our campus editor, Sam Rowden, who last-minute substitution couldn't be on the podcast. Rodens. I always say her last name wrong. Anyway, she played volleyball in high school, so
Nice.
yeah, that's the first question was supposed to be a softball for her. And speaking of softballs, which softball pitch will you never see on a Major League Baseball diamond? A, fastball, B, changeup, C, curveball, or D, rise ball?
D?
That's right.
That is correct. 2 for 2.
See? Doing better than you thought.
The
Look at
rise
that.
ball?
Rise
And,
ball.
and keep in mind, Nicholas and Lydia both got 7 out of 10. But if I'm correct, you only need to get 5 out of 10 to get the $5.
Yeah.
So you're
It's
all
a pretty low bar we've set.
It's a low bar.
Let's see if you can clear.
Well, because, we're bringing on people that don't have aren't known for their sports knowledge. Their career isn't in it like ours hopes to be, intends to be.
What if I'm just?
Please, someone hire me.
What if I'm just what's that called when you're like pretending that you don't?
A sheep in lamb's clothing.
No, I think it's something else.
Or, no, a dog. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Why did I
It's
say
like
that?
hustling. Like I'm hustling.
Oh yeah. In
It's way similar.
the pool term.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm hustling you guys. I don't
Yeah,
know.
hustling. I think
Probably
that
not,
is the term actually.
I've seen the questions.
Sandbagging.
So we'll see if the
No,
hustle
Sandbagging
continues.
us? Oh.
Sandbagging is intentionally doing bad. It's like tanking.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, yes.
In the NFL,
Yes.
what is the penalty for pass interference? Defensive pass interference. A, ball placed at spot of the foul. B, loss of down 5 yards from the previous spot. C, the defender must immediately drop to his knees and beg for forgiveness. Or D, a 15-yard penalty.
Can you repeat B again?
Loss of down 5 yards from the previous spot.
And you said,
Just repeat the question.
yeah, repeat the question.
What is the penalty for defensive pass interference in the NFL?
So it would be D, right?
Nope, it is A, ball placed at spot of the foul.
Okay.
15 yards is in college.
Man. Oh, so but was I like at least like
Yeah, you were in the ballpark.
We could give her like a half point for that. She got the college one right, which is for
true.
Ohio State.
There are no half measures, only full. Was you Breaking Bad
This
fans?
game is rigged.
No.
This game is rigged.
This game is rigged.
We're getting into uncharted territory here.
New rules with the 5 for 5 quiz show.
Yeah.
What does baseball's American League have that its National League does not? A, stadium Wi-Fi. B, designated hitters. C, switch pitchers. Or D, automated umpires.
Can you repeat the options again?
Stadium Wi-Fi, designated hitters, switch pitchers, or automated umpires. Half the major leagues have it. The other half does not.
Is it B? Is it
Yeah.
The pitchers?
Yes, it is.
No,
That-
well, B was designated hitters, but
No, that's what I meant. Sorry, not
Yeah.
that, I promise you, I did mean the hitters.
No,
You got-
I believe her.
I believe you.
I know that they switch out with pitchers.
Yes,
Cool.
that's right.
Bingo.
Bingo.
She just stands 2 away.
Yeah, she's already at 3 or 4. See, she was hustling us.
Wait, does she have
Absolutely.
3 or 4 right now?
She has 3.
She's 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Next couple I think are a little harder. We'll see. Which of these football play concepts is a run? A, trap. B, smash. C, curls and flats. Or D, levels.
Okay.
Would you like to hear the question again?
No, I know the question. I just what are the answers again?
Trap, smash, curls and flats, or levels. Which is a run? The other 3 are passes.
Is it C?
Nope, it is A, trap.
Trap. Okay.
Trap. It's called trap because the guard traps an opposing defensive lineman. He's unblocked by the line. He's unblocked, and then you trap him. So that's always a fun block to perform as a guard because the guard guy's not even looking at you, so you can just like run him over, ear hole him, as it's called.
It's a little more complex than something the average football watcher would know.
Just know that as an offensive guard, it was my favorite play to run because I got to absolutely destroy somebody.
Always a fun time.
Unless they were a disciplined player and squeezed the hip, but that's getting into advanced technique. Moving on. Which of these real sports involves a jack and several spherical balls that are thrown into sand or clay? Is it A, netball, B, pétanque, C, luge, or D, pesapalo? All real sports.
How many right do I have? I feel like I'm nervous.
You have
now.
3.
You have 3.
Okay, I should have gotten a half one on one of them. Wait,
I said you got a half one.
so,
It's my
okay.
quiz.
Wait. Repeat again. Sorry.
Netball, pétanque, luge, and pesapalo.
Is it D?
No, it's B, pétanque.
Dang it.
Pesapalo is probably the oddest one on there. It's only played in a few countries, but it's similar to baseball. Yeah, but talk is it's all like bocce ball. If you've ever played bocce ball.
Interestingly enough, we actually had to take a petanque rules quiz in order to earn our positions as sports editors for the Lantern.
Yes.
That's what it came down to.
Quite the simple game, so it was an easy quiz.
And then I had to take a Pesapalo one for sports director position.
Just for good measure.
Just for good measure.
Gotta test
Cover
that
all the
sports
bases,
knowledge.
you know?
Yeah, quite literally.
You never know when it's going to come up. How
Like
many
right now.
substitutions does a soccer team get in a match? 2, 3, 4, or over 9,000?
So it's not D. Is it B? Is it 3?
It is.
There you go.
That's your fourth one. You've only got
Oh.
there's 3 questions left. You only got to get one of them.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. You seem
I'll
very
take those
enthused
odds.
about it. All right. So, baseball's all-time home runs leader, Barry Bonds, is believed to have used steroids. The player whose record he broke, whose last name was Aaron, held what nickname? A, the Great Bambino, B, Broadway Joe, C, Hammerin' Hank, or D, B, Nasty?
Is it A?
It is not A. That's Babe Ruth. But good guess knowing Babe Ruth. Hammerin' Hank. Hammerin' Hank Aaron.
We would have accepted D, B nasty as well.
I'm quite fond of that nickname.
B Nasty up in the his A. Hitting you with
A
some.
very apt nickname at that.
Oh, you guys.
Is he B Nasty?
oh, you stop.
Oh, you silly geese.
Anyway, moving on.
All right. Holding a team to 0 points in either football or baseball is called a what? A suppression, a blank space, a shutout, or a stoppage
At what sports?
in either football or baseball.
Can you say them again?
Suppression, blank space, which was a Taylor Swift reference when the quiz was for Sam, who's the biggest Taylor Swift fan of all time, as you guys might know. Shutout or stoppage.
Is it C?
It is a shutout.
That is correct.
That's 5.
Holy
That's
smokes.
5. You passed.
Well, you gotta see how high you can go. Can you get the last question right?
I'll try my best.
The last question is always a special edition. Do you read the Lantern Sports section?
I don't even read the arts section.
Unfortunate. So, in Thursday's paper, Griffin profiled which Ohio State football coach? Is it A, Mickey Marotti, B, Ryan Day, C, Brian Hartline, or D, Larry Johnson?
Is it D?
It is not. It is A, Mickey
That's a real
Marotti.
gut punch, man.
Aw.
Then,
You don't read Griffin's stuff. You guys are supposed to be friends. Nah.
I cry.
I'll go and read it right now.
There you
Are
go.
you really?
But you know what? You still got 5
5.
which is all that matters really, because you're gonna get the money, gonna get the
Will
cash.
you tell the other ones that I did better than them?
I am held to a certain journalistic standard.
Certain ethics around here at the
Certain.
sports desk.
You guys just tell them that I did better.
Listen, I will neither confirm or deny if you say anything. So
Fair.
If you walk out there and say you got 8 or 9 out of 10, and then I won't say anything afterward.
yeah,
Yeah.
You know.
I might let you live it up for a day and then tell them actually what happened.
But by that point, they'll have forgotten about it. So you know what?
True.
Yes.
So,
True.
and unless there are some of our 40 viewers that actually watch this podcast, they'll never find out the truth.
It's true.
So
Okay. Fine. It's settled. I got 8.
you got 8. There you go.
There you go.
Cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Is
Thank you.
that-
Thank you very much for.
Is there anything you'd like to plug from the arts section?
No,
All right.
not really.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ashley. It was a pleasure having you on.
Cool.
See you later.
See you later. Yes.
Later, skater. Don't be a hater.
All right.
Griffin worked as a waiter.
All right. Well, thank you very much, viewers, for sticking with us for that fun segment. And now we can get into, talking about the sports and men's basketball. We have 2 games to actually recap that happened this past week. One of them a loss and one of them a win. Do either of you want to kick things off?
I'll go ahead and jump right in.
All right.
The Minnesota game might have been the best. It definitely was the best basketball game we've seen this year, right?
It was intense, yeah.
I mean, it came down to the
it was
final.
I'd say it came down to the wire. Is it the best Buckeyes have played? No.
Oh,
No,
absolutely.
I just meant the best game in terms of competition you've seen.
Yes, true.
Um,
That is definitely the case, but
And what happened at the end of the game, it was actually Caleb Wesson's the worst scoring output of his career, I believe. Actually, he might have had, I think in one game he had 0 points, maybe his freshman or sophomore year. So it was the second lowest scoring output he had in any game of his career. Shot 1 for 10 from the field, which was really kind of an outlier in the entire season, and specifically this skid Ohio State's been on, because for the most part, Caleb Wesson has been pretty consistent, and everybody else has kind of been up and down, mostly down. But in the Minnesota game, honestly, to me, it seemed like everybody else was pretty in rhythm in comparison to games in the past. Guys were generally playing well and weren't missing a ton of shots. I think the team shot over 50% without Caleb Wesson, which definitely has not been the case during Ohio State's month-long slump here. But at the end of the game, it actually was Caleb Wesson's passing. He had 2 dishes, I believe, to Kyle Young in the paint. Kyle Young scored 4 points to put the Buckeyes ahead towards the end of that game, if you remember that. But then it was Marcus Carr, the Buckeye killer. Some might refer to him as, me especially, who torched Ohio State. I think he had 28 points in the second half of the first game against Ohio State this year, where Minnesota also won.
35 total.
And then he came down the floor and he actually got blocked by Caleb Wesson on one attempt, but I think they retained possession and he scored a layup. I think Luther Muhammad might have slipped on defense on that one. And then he comes right back down after a missed Caleb Wesson 3 and hits a 3 of his own.
In the face of C.J. Walker.
Right in the face. And scores the last 5 points of the game. And really kind of highlighted a key position, not a key position, but a key, element, basketball element that Ohio State doesn't really have, which is a guard that at the end of games steps up and creates a shot off the dribble and scores some points.
Yeah, I don't know. I was actually going off of that. I was very impressed by the way Ohio State played, just because it seems like against Minnesota they weren't necessarily making a lot of mistakes. They were not perfect, and they still missed a lot of shots that cost them in the end, especially in the beginning of the second half. They kind of got out of the rhythm on offense. But I was impressed by the way they recovered and how, for the most part, they played a very consistent, well-fought game. You could argue it's a game they should have won. Had Caleb Wesson made a couple more shots, they would have won.
Yeah.
But, there are going to be nights where your star player does not show up, unfortunately, unless that star player is LeBron James, in which case.
Wesson did impact the game in other ways, which
Yeah.
Holtman brought up.
Right.
Yeah, Wesson was still very good on defense.
14 rebounds.
14 rebounds, and he did create those 2 assists to Kyle Young at the end of the game. So
He did.
his it's not like his presence was a detriment on the court.
Right. I just think all they needed was for Caleb Wesson to not have his second worst offensive game of his career, and I think they would've won.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I wanted to say is that I think your perception of this game depends on your expectations for Ohio State this year.
Yeah,
true.
that's
How
very
do you
true.
view the team? Because Minnesota was 10-8. Let's be real here. They'd already beaten Ohio State once, but you're playing a team that without you is a 9-8 team, and this is someone that you're expecting to. I think there are a lot of Buckeye fans. The expectation this year was that they, make a run for the Sweet 16 kind of a deal.
Yeah.
Or
And
at
maybe-
one point there was we said Final Four maybe when they were on that hot streak.
Yeah.
And
And at the very least,
didn't
people
feel sustainable.
and at the very least, people were expecting Ohio State to contend for the Big Ten title after their hot run earlier in the season. Now they're 3-6 in
they're
the
3
conference.
and 6 in the conference, and honestly, right now sitting as a bubble team for the tournament, just period. Which is insane to think about after the wins they've had against Villanova, North Carolina, and Kentucky, which I know some of those teams have fallen off the map. But regardless, I think if your expectations are anything of this team should be tournament caliber, then a loss to Minnesota is kind of unacceptable in any space, no matter how good the team looked. It's
Right, right.
It's a 9-8 team without the 2 wins without the 2 games against you. So, and Minnesota's probably not a tournament team, not at this stage anyway. So, if your expectations are lower than that, if you just wanted to see them play better relative to how they have during certain points of this stretch, this slog that they've gone through in late December and January, then I think there were some good takeaways to have, right? I think you could be pleased with, I guess, some sort of a moral victory that they played, that they had some a little bit of consistent shooting. Defense was there. They didn't kill themselves with turnovers, 12 in the game, although Minnesota only had 4. But so it all depends on your expectations for this team. And
yeah. Because, like, on the flip side, I could say, that this was a game Ohio State should have won. Like, the fact that they lost to Minnesota at home after already losing to them on the road is a tough pill to swallow, especially when you look at where Ohio State was, a month before. Because heading into this game, they had lost 5 of their last 6, and this loss made it. They had lost 6 of their last 7, and that one win was against a very bad Nebraska team.
Yes, and I wrote it in my column from the other day, just yesterday.
Plug.
But it could be, if you look at it from this way, it could be pretty disheartening that the head coach of a team that was ranked number 2 in the country would be sitting after the game talking about how he thought his team was making steps forward after taking a 6 loss in 7 games. You know what I mean? That's not necessarily a sign that, or not necessarily something that Buckeye fans would want to hear from their coach in that situation. But I actually think if you saw what happened for the most part with the supporting cast in that Minnesota game, and then you saw what happened in the Northwestern game, I think there is some validity to Chris Holtmann saying that the Buckeyes are making some small steps forward.
Yeah, I was on a more positive note. I was impressed with the way that Dwayne Washington Jr. and Luther Muhammad rebounded in that Minnesota game. They had that rough stretch where they were both taking really bad shots and not playing well, even getting suspended for that one game. But I think they both came back and they showed a lot of hustle. Dwayne Washington was 5 of 12 for that game, which is not amazing, but compared to some of his games in that bad 6 and 7 stretch, that's a slight improvement. And Dwayne Washington is someone that Ohio State needs to be scoring consistently if they want to have a chance in this NCAA tournament or even the Big Ten conference.
Yes, I actually went back and looked at it. I think C.J. Walker scored a layup with like 6:02 left or something. After that, so the last 6 minutes of the game, not a single Buckeye scored a point except for Kyle Young with those 2 layups, that dunk and that layup at the end of the game.
And they pulled down.
And yeah. And so there was 3 missed shots by Dwayne Washington and 2 missed shots by Caleb Wesson, and then the 2 shots by Kyle Young there. So that was the shot selection for Ohio State in the last 6 minutes of the game. But other than that, those 4 points by Kyle Young, they didn't score a single point, not even a free throw.
Yeah.
Which honestly, it's kind of shocking, but it goes to show that Ohio State in stretches and particularly late in close games hasn't been able to find offense. But like I said, I think that there was some signs in that Northwestern game, if we wanted to go ahead and transfer over to that one.
Yeah, we can start talking about that too.
Yeah. Ohio State came out very flat yet again, and it was kind of like, wow, man, like Ohio State really needs to come out strong against a team. It's the worst team in the Big Ten, and the worst team they're gonna play, the rest of the way. They really needed to come out strong. They didn't. They got down like 13-4 at the beginning of that game. I think they started 1 for 10 from the field and 1 for 8 from 3. And that's the team that you've seen for much of this stretch. But they did come back in a major way. And I think they hit 5 their next 5 straight threes after that, and 2 of those came from Justin Arnes, who had easily his best performance of the season. And his best performance really since his 29-point kind of outlier explosion last year. He hit 4 threes in the game. He was 4 or 5 from 3. And that was a huge lift for Ohio State. I mean, if he was able to come in and hit 3 threes per game, like, could you imagine that? That would do so much for Ohio State's offense. If he was like a
incredible.
legitimate, consistent threat from 3.
It would like be having John Dealer back at Ohio State, essentially.
I wouldn't say that level, but it would.
Not that level, but I mean,
it would spread the floor.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about having good shooters on the outside is it's not just the impact of they provide the extra scoring presence. It's now you've got more space for a Caleb Wesson or a Kyle Young to work on the inside. And I think that Ohio State really needs to do some soul searching about this offensive dilemma that they've been having at the guard position, because you can't put a lot of stock into a victory over a Northwestern team. They only shot 44% anyway. in that contest, which isn't like
Mm-hmm.
putting the lights out of the gym. Who are the people that you can go to, the guards that you can go to in those key situations? One of the four has to have some sort of threat in that area.
And it's not going to be Luther Muhammad.
I was
it-
just about to say that.
It's not Luther Muhammad.
It's not Luther Muhammad because I honestly, late in games, maybe rotate him in as a role guy for defensive situations, but I don't think he should be on the floor at all offensively if you're in a late game, need to score scenario.
Yeah.
He can't shoot threes consistently. He hasn't been able to throughout this season. He had a decent percentage last year, but it was always streaky. It was never consistent when he did well. He just doesn't have good shot selection either. Not that he takes a lot of shots, but the ones he does, he shoots a very low percentage, and it's because he's trying to create. Khalid and I talked about this on a previous pod, that the mid-range game, in today's basketball world, contested mid-range is the worst shot you can take, and that's all he's taking. He has that move where he steps back and he takes an elbow jumper and misses it to the left every time. You can't take contested mid-range shots because in the world of analytics, you either want to be close to the basket or behind the three-point line.
Well, you can take it if you are like
Good
a
at it.
superb elite.
If you're
offensive
like
player,
DeRozan
like KD
or Kawhi.
Kawhi Leonard,
Yeah.
someone that hits that shot at like a
Oh
ridiculously
yes,
high rate.
if you can convert it at the rate that most people convert from 5 feet away, MJ was famous for his mid-range game.
Yep.
Then yeah, great, go for it. But that's not what Luther's been doing.
If you can't hit a single shot,
If you can't,
then you probably
if you can't hit a single shot from that range, then probably don't take it. And he can actually drive to the hole. That's the thing that bewilders me. How rare is it that he drives to the hole A and then B? Every time he does, how often does he convert it? A lot of the time. Like, it's rare to see him
so
go.
sparing that you forget
It's so
that he-
sparing that he does it. And that every time he does it, you're like, wow, I forgot he can do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel
And I don't know why he insists on pulling up from the elbow when he could take it to the rack and get two,
Yeah, no.
as my dad would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I just until we see more consistent player or smarter play from Luther Muhammad, he should not be the guy that you rely on to control Ohio State's offense. And the thing is, even if you discount him, looking at the other guards, there is not a perfect solution. I think DJ Carton's probably is the best talent-wise, but he's still too green. He still makes too many mistakes. He had 17 points against Northwestern. He had a very good game, which is a good sign.
6 for 8, only 1 turnover, 3 assists.
Yeah, it was a very good game for him, and I'm hoping that this could be maybe the game where he kind of like starts to establish a consistent baseline. But
We'll see.
But that's the thing. We'll see. He's a freshman. We don't know where it's going to go. So kind of discounting him for the meantime, you would look at someone like C.J. Walker or Dwayne Washington Jr. to kind of step into that role. But neither of them either have the playmaking ability that Ohio State needs, or they just cannot convert shots consistently.
Well, I think you need a distributor,
Yeah.
and that's not what Dwayne is.
That's not what Dwayne is. No.
If you're talking like pure scoring threat at the end, then Dwayne might be able to do that, although he's had problems with consistency throughout
Yeah.
his career, with
Exactly.
the exception of this year before the injury. After the injury, the same old inconsistency issues have arisen again. But you need someone who can facilitate. So that either has to be CJ or DJ, I think.
Yeah.
And out of those two, the only one who can create his own offense is DJ Carton. I
Exactly.
think, honestly, the solution to this clutch dilemma for Ohio State is to put DJ Carton in scenarios where he's either going to win or lose you the game handling the ball. He's the only player capable, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a freshman. I understand why you don't want to put him in those scenarios, but guess what? You aren't succeeding in them anyway right now.
No.
You might as well roll the dice and have a chance to.
Yeah, that's my point. That's a good point. My only thing that I'm saying with this is right now, if you put DJ Carr in that scenario, he will succeed, but there will be plenty of times where he fails too, because right now
Right,
he's just
that's
not
what I'm saying.
He's not consistent.
But you're
enough.
failing all of the time right now.
No, that's fair. That's a good point. Yeah, I think. Well, go ahead.
But I was going to say, at the end of the Northwestern game, for maybe the first time all season, you actually saw the three main guards that can, I guess, that can actually score or can mostly get a shot off the dribble, which are Dwayne Washington, DJ Carton, and CJ Walker. They all actually worked together at the end of that game, and they all came up with very big buckets. It wasn't quite as closely contested or late in the game. as some of the other games that they've been having.
Sorry.
If only one of you was distracted and not both of you being distracted, then I might have been able to continue. But at the end of Northwest, it was a 4-point game.
Someone talking to us outside.
Yeah, someone was talking to us through out the door. It was
Trying to undermine my wonderful point here. No, but it was a 4-point. The Buckeyes were up 4 with 5 minutes to go. DJ Carton scored 4 straight points to double that lead for Ohio State, and then after that, he found C.J. Walker for a wide open 3, and then C.J. Walker found Dwayne Washington for a wide open 3 as well.
CJ's showed spurts this year too. At times, he's like.
I think a lot of people were expecting CJ to come in and kind of be that playmaker for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think it was they were expecting someone who could lead the offense.
Yeah,
really.
that's like because he came and transferred, so he sat a year. So the idea was, he was still talented enough to kind of sit for a year, learn the system, and kind of step in and be this leader that the Ohio State offense desperately needed. And I wouldn't necessarily say he's been bad. He just hasn't been that guy for Ohio State.
You know who I heard this brought up, and you know who they could really use? Just as suing.
Yes, except for now he's hurt too. Not only is he couldn't play otherwise, but now he has to deal with recovering from an injury, which isn't great for any player. But I like Justice Suing, and not that I've seen like a ton from him or anything, but he's like a 6'7" guy, and I think he can play a little bit on the perimeter too. And I think he's a natural scorer as well. I think he led California in scoring for both of
That's
his
what I'm
seasons.
saying. They need a natural scorer.
Yeah, they need somebody that can get some easy buckets.
And that's not, Caleb can score. Usually he can score, but he's not someone you can have handling the ball in those crunch time scenarios. He needs someone to get him the ball.
Yeah.
And then teams are crashing on him, and you've seen it a million times now.
Yeah. And not that these two Buckeye players are all that similar. But if you look at a guy like Deshaun Thomas and you look at Jayshawn Tate, those are two guys that played in that power forward or that 4 spot.
Well, Thomas could stretch the floor a little bit more.
Right. But my point about those guys is that they could just score easy baskets. They got a lot of easy buckets, just kind of like naturally being able to throw the ball in the hole sometimes. And I thought that EJ Liddell this season was going to play that role a little bit, where he would be able to get a few more easy buckets per game, just like on an athletic play or on a hustle play or whatever it is.
Who's that one player they had that was like that? He would get some putback points and some of those like easy buckets. Like I can't remember.
Yeah, just getting like an easy bucket when they can't score, like just being able to stop a drought. Just being able to find some quick, easy offense occasionally. I thought EJ Liddell might play that role a little bit more this year than we've seen from him, and I definitely think he'll have a bigger role moving forward. But he just doesn't seem to just be getting over that hump, man. Just like you just want a little bit more out of him, and he just doesn't give it to you.
And I think the fact that someone like Liddell hasn't been able to step up and fill that gap has almost put a lot of pressure on like the Wesson brothers and Kyle Young, because those are the kind of guys you would expect to fill that role of kind of like the easy point getter. And Caleb's been good. He has not been as great or consistent as we thought he was going to be. And Andre Wesson and Kyle Young, I think, have had good seasons. They just aren't those guys that you look to. That's not their role in the offense.
You know who this team needs? Let me throw 2 words at you. Dallas Lauderdale.
Dallas Lauderdale. I was like, damn, that's deep, man. That's deep.
Athletic.
Evan Ravenel.
Shot the ball like yes. I remember Ravenel. All right, are you ready for this
Trey
one?
Thompson.
William Buford.
Ooh.
Buford would be good because
actually no. Buford could actually create his own offense a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like a 15-point a game guy by the end of his Buckeye career, which would lead the Buckeyes now.
Shannon Scott.
Oh, I never
loved
loved Shannon Scott.
That wasn't a serious suggestion, but actually Aaron Kraft.
Aaron Kraft is the type of player that Ohio State needs right now, because he was that point guard that could just
that
generate
consummate
offense.
Point guard.
Just the perfect point guard that Ohio State needed and needs right now desperately.
Indeed, sir. Indeed.
Preach.
Not even necessarily.
Even though I brought the name.
Not even if I'm preaching, not even just on offense, but just the defensive intensity that Aaron Craft brought is something that Ohio State is
best
lacking
on-ball
right now.
defender in school history, maybe in NCAA history. Man, that guy was fun to watch.
He was.
Even if he was frustrating sometimes with his shooting, but
I mean, we're not lacking for that right now.
I swear there was one season where it seemed like his shot was a lot better for like one game, and then
yeah, I know. He would have those games where he'd hit a few, and then like the next one he'd just be inconsistent. Of course, he hit the big one against Iowa State.
yeah,
I do remember that shot. It was quite the shot. Yeah. So just kind of bringing us back to the present with Ohio State, we do have a game coming up on Saturday. Ohio State's returning home to Columbus to take on Indiana. Indiana is a team that beat Ohio State in their losing 6 or 7 stretch. It was a 66-54 loss at Indiana. It was not competitive at all. Ohio State played very bad that game.
I'm so confused about what you guys are both looking at that has you both have that grin on your face right now.
I don't have a grin.
I was just thinking about stuff and laughing. I wasn't really looking at anything.
I'm just pulling up the stats for the
previous
for that game. Yeah.
Well, you'll have to be looking at something that might not be so funny on Saturday, Andy, if the Hoosiers could beat Ohio State again. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think Ohio State, like I said, they probably needed to win against Minnesota in order to just gain a little more traction. They didn't do that, but they won against Northwestern. They need to win against Indiana as well. And I think they will.
If they drop it against Indiana, that could start the downward spiral of not even making the NCAA tourney.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're on the verge of that.
I mean, Indiana is a very decent team. It's not. I'd say they're a much higher caliber team than Minnesota and definitely Northwestern.
I mean, you've got a hefty mix of winnable and not so winnable games left.
Yeah,
After Indiana, of course, you travel to Michigan, travel to Wisconsin, who already beat you at home. Rutgers, which is, I mean, there's
Rutgers is ranked, aren't they?
Are they still ranked this week? They were ranked last week.
I didn't see what happened with them.
They've been better this year.
I was just shocked to see it in general.
Purdue, you still have a game against Maryland, game against Michigan State, another game against Michigan.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the top 25 right now. ESPN. Hello.
Not a whole lot of gimme wins.
Rutgers is 25th right now. They
already
dropped a spot, so they are still ranked.
They've already gimme wins in the Big Ten, and Ohio State needs some gimme wins.
Yeah, and I think what we were expecting was we were kind of expecting Ohio State to win against Minnesota because generally the Big Ten has been very tough for road teams. So Minnesota being Ohio State at the Schottenstein Center was kind of an outlier in that sense. So losing another game at home would be very bad for Ohio State's case for the NCAA tournament, especially since at that point they would be 3-7 in Big Ten conference play.
You got to go on the road to Michigan and make that 3-8.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how they play. One thing that does give me confidence in this team that they can play a little better is just looking at that game. Ohio State, I think, shot very poorly when they were at Indiana. Yeah, I think I'm just pulling up the stats.
They only scored 54 points.
They only scored 54 points. They shot 32% from the field. And the past couple games, even with Caleb Wesson shooting 1 for 10, they've still been shooting in the mid-40s, percentage-wise. So if they play at the level they've been playing, I think they'll be able to keep the game competitive. And if they just hit a couple clutch shots towards the end, I think they can win close. Or maybe they come out just with a lot of energy, and I think this is Indiana is a team that they can beat with momentum on their side. But if we see kind of what happened in the Minnesota game or other games in this rough stretch where momentum in the second half shifts towards the other team, I'm not sure if Ohio State will be able to rebound.
Yeah, I think a lot of the early games for Ohio State, they would just come out in the second half and just look really good and kind of close the deal where you've seen with games recently, even in the game, I believe it was the first game against Indiana, Ohio State had come back from being down in the first half, and they got a bit of a lead at the end of the first half. And that's where, at the beginning of the season, their shooting was so good that they would just come out hot and just put it away. Whereas this season you're seeing in the second half, the other team will come back, retake the lead, and then it's a game, and it's going down to the wire, and then it comes down to Ohio State's scoring problem with the guards and all that stuff that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think someone like DJ Carton's going to have to step up on Saturday if Ohio State wants a chance of winning, or Caleb Wesson maybe has to step over that hurdle and maybe scores 20+ points. You're going to need a performance like that to beat a team like Indiana. They're 15-5, I think, right now.
Are they really?
Hold on, let me pull it. Yeah, they're 15-5. They're 5-4 in the Big Ten Conference, so it's not like they've been tearing it up either. But
are they ranked in the lower? I feel like they're not.
I don't think they're ranked. No.
Ohio State certainly didn't get back in the polls, did they?
Just let me pull up the top 25 again. I closed out of it. I don't.
Looks like Ohio State is 29 right now in terms
29.
of the votes.
How?
Good point.
What do you think they should be lower?
Indiana.
Rutgers is still ranked.
I don't know how
Penn
they're
State
getting.
is also ranked.
How are you getting votes after
Indiana is actually
back-to-back
30th.
losses against Penn State and Minnesota, which made it 6 out of 7? I just don't see how you're still ranked.
I think it's just like the bias of like Ohio State was second at one point. Indiana got 15 votes this week, while Ohio State got 16 votes. So
Yeah.
in the AP terms, they're pretty much even.
Big Ten's got 6 right now in that top 25.
Top 25.
And then
Yeah.
they've got Indiana and Ohio State both in the top 30, so that's 8 in the top 30.
Yep, that's why you got to get the wins while you can, and that's why you got to win Saturday.
Yeah.
If you want to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah. It's just, this is a do or die game for Ohio State if they want to have any longevity to their season and success when it comes to the NCAA tournament or even just the Big Ten tournament, because as Andy mentioned earlier, after this game, you're at Michigan and at Wisconsin. Michigan's a very solid team, and Wisconsin already beat you at home. And then you're back home against a ranked Rutgers team. And then you're getting ahead, but then you're at home for Purdue and away for Iowa. I don't think any of those games are necessarily gimmies for Ohio State.
No.
Hasn't Michigan's season been strangely similar to Ohio State's in terms of they like shot up into the top 5 at some point, and now they're...
Michigan had that early win that, was it over Duke? I think that launched them from being like unranked to in the top 5.
Right, and now they're back 11-8.
Yeah, they're 11.
And they're only up 1 over Nebraska right now.
Oh, wow.
In the first half. So maybe that Michigan matchup, I mean, it is a rivalry game, but...
They beat Gonzaga.
Oh, okay.
Gonzaga.
That might not be as steep of a test as I'm thinking just looking at the name.
Yeah, I mean...
The Zaga continues.
Yeah, it'll still be interesting. I mean, I don't know. Michigan still had like wins, still had decent wins. They beat Iowa, and Iowa's ranked right now. So
Right. The Big Ten is honestly just seems so random this year with the wins and losses.
it's just like the complete chaos. Like
Yeah.
everyone's like, it seems like it's like everyone's so good that everyone just cancels each other out. Like no team escapes the gauntlet unscathed. It's like the Pac-12 in football.
Right.
If I was looking at a comparison where the Pac-12 just knocks everyone in the conference out of playoff contention by losing to each other.
Right.
So obviously it's different in men's basketball, but that's the only comparison I could think of on the fly.
It was a good one.
Thank you. All right.
Well, I think we've exhausted our vocal cords here.
I'm pretty tired. I think I'm going
Pretty
to go
tuckered.
home now.
Just one last thing. What do you guys think? Do you think Ohio State will win on Saturday?
Yes,
Yeah.
All right, I'll go.
because they have to win on Saturday.
Yeah. On that note, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much for sticking with us and watching another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land with our special guest appearance by Ashley Kimmel. Stay tuned next week when we recap Ohio State and how they did against Indiana. And Clid will also be back from Miami, I believe. So,
Or maybe he'll just stay.
or maybe he'll just stay. He might be gone.
Find a nice young woman down there. Get a real rip of a scoop.
All right, then. On that, though, thank you very much for watching and have a great day.